My dad's girlfriend called me to fix her fence on a Wednesday morning in April, and I should have said no the second her name lit up my screen. My father, Frank Garrett, was a retired high school shop teacher and the most uncomplicated, decent man I had ever known. He raised me alone after my mother chose a different kind of life when I was 11, and from him I learned early that being the reliable one, the steady one, the one who shows up with a tool bag, was the closest thing to being chosen a man like me was ever going to get. So when my dad's girlfriend called me to fix her fence after a spring storm tore out a full section and ripped the gate off its hinges, I told myself it was just a favor. Just wood. Just nails. Just a broken gate behind a house I had only seen once, belonging to a woman who belonged, on paper, to my father. Nothing complicated. Nothing dangerous. Nothing a man with a level and a drill couldn't put back together in an afternoon. But then, before I had even pulled into her driveway, Nora sent a text that made what I did not know yet, what I could not have known, standing at my truck with my dad's girlfriend's text still glowing on my screen, was that Nora had not called a stranger. She had not called the neighbor. She had called the one person in my father's entire world who would notice every single thing about her that my father had somehow, gently and without meaning to, stopped seeing. And what neither of us knew, sitting on opposite ends of a phone call about a fence, was that my father, the kindest, steadiest man I have ever loved, already knew something about the woman he was dating and the son he had raised that the two of us would spend the next 3 months of our lives trying very hard not to say out loud. Her house sat at the end of a quiet street where the oak trees were older than the people who lived under them. A 1940s craftsman, painted soft green, with a porch swing that moved a little in the breeze like it was waiting on someone. I sat in my truck for a long second before I opened the door. I told myself I was checking the address. I wasn't. She came around the side of the house before I made it to the gate. Cream linen shirt, dark jeans, auburn hair in a loose braid, a streak of dirt on her wrist from the garden. Like she had forgotten she was working when she heard my truck pull up. She lifted one hand and waved, and for a single ridiculous second, my chest did the same thing it had done when her name first lit up my phone. "Mason," she said. "Thank you for coming." "You're welcome." My voice came out steadier than I felt. "Where's the damage?" She led me through the side gate, and I followed her into a backyard that looked less like a yard and more like a small, private country she had built one season at a time. Raised beds. Climbing roses on a trellis she had clearly built herself. A stone path that curved for no reason except that it was beautiful. And at the far end, the fence. One section pulled loose from its post, the gate hanging open like a door someone forgot to close on the way out. "It's worse than the pictures," I said. "I know." She crossed her arms, and I watched her glance at the broken gate the way a person glances at a thing they are not sure they want fixed. I almost didn't call. I looked at her. "Why didn't you?" She was quiet for a second too long. "Because I knew your father would offer to do it himself," she said. "And I didn't want him climbing a ladder." It was the truth. I could hear that. But it was not the whole truth, and we both knew it, and the silence that came after it was the first silence of the afternoon that did not feel safe. I set my tool bag down on the grass. "Let's get to work," I said, and somewhere inside the house, where I could not see it yet, a phone began to ring on a kitchen counter, and the name on the screen was Frank. Nora pulled her phone from her back pocket. I watched her see the name. I watched the smallest, most honest thing happen on her face. Not guilt, not panic, just a soft hesitation. The kind a person wears when the right thing and the easy thing are not the same thing. "Excuse me 1 second, she said. She turned and walked a few steps toward the rose trellis before she answered. "Hi, Frank." I bent down and pretended to look for a level I did not need. No, I'm fine," I heard her say. "I'm in the yard. The fence, yeah. I found someone. He's already here." Pause. "Mason, actually." Longer pause. I did not look up. I did not breathe. "I know," she said softly. "I should have. I just didn't want you driving over for it." Another pause. "Yes, I'll tell him. 'Kay. Love you too." She slid the phone back into her pocket and stood there for 1 extra second, looking at the roses like they had asked her a question. When she turned around, her smile was a little smaller than the one she had greeted me with. "He says hi. Tell him hi back. I will. She did not say love you back to him until the very end of the call. I had counted. I hated that I had counted. For the next 2 hours I worked. Cedar dust in the air. The smell of fresh-cut wood, warm in the sun. The soft thwack of a hammer on a post. Bees somewhere in the hydrangeas. Her radio playing low through the open kitchen window. Old songs, the kind my father used to hum without realizing he was humming them. Every 20 minutes she came out with something I did not ask for. A glass of cold water with mint in it. A clean towel. A second pencil because she had seen me snap the first one on a knot in the wood and had not made a thing of it. She remembered I took my coffee black. From a birthday dinner 8 months ago. That was the detail that broke a small, quiet thing inside me. If you're feeling this story already, the weight of it, the pull of it, the way it's about to take a turn none of us are ready for, do me a favor right now. Tap that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell. Because what happens in the next 10 minutes of this story is the part one have been waiting 2 years to tell. And you do not want to miss the moment everything in this man's life finally changes. By 1 o'clock, the post was set, the new section was fitted, and the gate swung clean on its hinges for the first time since the storm. I tested the latch 3 times. Caught every time. It's done, I said. Nora walked over slowly, the way a person walks toward something they almost don't want to be finished. She put her hand on the new wood. She didn't say anything for a long moment. It's beautiful, Mason. It's a fence. It's a fence you built, she said. Those are different. I looked at her. She looked at the gate. Come inside, she said. I made you lunch. The kitchen smelled like rosemary and lemon and warm bread. There was a small table by the window with 2 plates already set. Roasted chicken, a green salad with pears in it, a glass pitcher of iced tea sweating gently in the light. She had used cloth napkins. Not for ceremony. Just because that was how she lived. We ate. We talked about small things first. The garden. A house I was restoring on Glenwood. The way the storm had taken half the magnolias on her street. Then, in the middle of a sentence about hydrangeas, she stopped, set her fork down and looked at me. Mason, can I ask you something honest? Yes. When I sent you that text this morning, finish it, and I'll make it worth your while. What did you think I meant? The kitchen went still. I set my own fork down. I could hear the clock on the wall. I could hear the wind in the oak outside. I could hear my own heartbeat in a way I had not heard since I was 17 years old. I told myself, I said slowly, you meant lunch. And what did the part of you that wasn't telling yourself anything think? I looked at her. She did not look away. There was no flirtation in her face. There was something worse. There was honesty. Nora, I'm not asking you to do anything, she said quickly. I'm asking you to tell the truth with me for 1 minute. Just one. Because I have not been able to tell the truth in this house for a long time, and I don't think you have either. My hand was on the table. Hers was 6 inches from it. Neither of us moved. And then, very softly, she said the sentence that made me stand up from my chair so fast it almost tipped over. Your father knows, Mason. I stared at her. He knows what? She did not answer. She just looked at me with the saddest, kindest, most honest eyes I had ever seen on a human being. And that was when I picked up my keys from the counter, told her thank you for the lunch in a voice that did not sound like mine, and walked out of her house faster than I had walked into it. I did not go to my father's house that day. I did not go the day after. I did not go for 9 days. Instead, I worked. I built a deck on the east side of town for a couple who barely looked at it. I tore out a kitchen floor for an elderly woman who kept calling me by her son's name, and I let her, because I had a feeling her son did not visit her anymore. I went home each night to a house that smelled like sawdust and silence, and I sat on my own back step with a beer I did not drink, looking at nothing. Nora did not call. She did not text. That, somehow, hurt more than anything she could have said. My father called twice. I let it go to voicemail both times. He did not leave a message either time, and the not leaving was its own message, and I understood it. On the 10th day, at sunset, I got in my truck. I drove out to the small brick house on Ferncliff Road where I had grown up. The same crooked mailbox. The The same chain-link fence I had helped him replace one summer when I was 19. Kneeling in the grass beside him, learning that a man's hands are how a man says the things he cannot say out loud. His truck was in the driveway. The garage light was on. He was on the front porch in his old green chair, holding a beer he was not really drinking either. He looked up when he heard my boots on the steps. He did not look surprised. He did not look angry. He looked like a man who had been waiting. "Sit down, son." I sat. For a long time, neither of us spoke. A mourning dove called from somewhere down the street. The light through the maples turned the porch a slow, soft gold. I had cried exactly twice as an adult. Once at my grandmother's funeral, once when a job I loved fell through, and I felt the third time gathering somewhere behind my eyes, and I clenched my jaw to hold it back. My father took a long, slow breath. "She was never going to be mine, Mason." 7 words. I closed my eyes. "I knew it the day you met her," he said quietly. "At my birthday dinner. She asked you about your work, and you answered her like a man who had never been asked before. And she listened like a woman who had never been answered." He turned the bottle slowly in his hands. "I drove home that night, son, and I knew. Dad, I let her go a week ago, before you ever drove out there to fix that fence. She didn't tell you, because she wanted you to come to me first." His voice softened. "That woman has more honor than the both of us combined." I could not speak. He looked at me, and his eyes were wet, but they were not sad in the way I had been afraid of. They were sad in the way a man is sad when he loves someone enough to want them to have something he could not give them himself. "I raised you to show up, Mason. I raised you to fix what was broken and to stay when it was hard. I did not raise you to spend the rest of your life being chosen second by people who didn't know what they had in front of them." His voice broke, just once. "Go to her, son." I put my face in my hands and I cried like I was 11 years old again. And my father, the most uncomplicated, decent man I had ever known, put one rough hand on the back of my neck and held it there until I was finished. I went to her 3 days later. Slowly. Honestly. I knocked on her front door in the daylight where the neighbors could see, and when she opened it, she did not throw her arms around me. She looked at me for a long moment with eyes that had clearly done their own crying. And then she said, "Come in. The kettle's on." We did not rush anything. We could not have, even if we had tried. There were quiet dinners at my father's house where the 3 of us slowly learned a new shape, and Frank Garrett was, every single time, the kindest man at the table. There were Saturdays at her nursery where I built new shelves and she taught me the names of plants I had walked past my whole life. There were mornings on her porch where the coffee was hot and nothing needed to be explained. 2 years later, I married Nora Callahan in her garden. Beside a cedar gate I had built with my own hands from the same wood as the fence that had started everything. My father walked her down a path of stone he had helped me lay. He danced with her once at the reception, kissed her gently on the forehead like a brother, and put her hand in mine. Years later, when people asked us how we got together, Nora would smile and say, "He fixed my fence." I would say, "She told me the truth." But the truth underneath the truth, the one I only ever said to her late at night in the dark of our own bedroom, was that for 32 years I had believed that being the reliable one, the steady one, the man who shows up with a tool bag, was the closest thing to being chosen a man like me was ever going to get. And then a woman with dirt on her wrist and roses on her trellis looked across her kitchen table and asked me to tell the truth for 1 single minute. And a father with rough hands and a quiet heart said 7 words to me on a porch at sunset. And I finally understood something I should have understood a long time ago. Being the man who builds things that last is not the consolation prize. It is the whole prize. It always was. So tell me, have you ever been called too steady, too reliable, too safe, by someone who walked away to chase something louder? And did someone, somewhere down the road, finally look at you and see exactly what the other person could not? Tell me your story in the comments. I read every single one. If this story moved you tonight, do me one small favor. Tap that like button, hit subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you do not miss the next one. There is another story coming next week that I think will sit with you for a long, long time. Until then, take care of yourself. Take care of the steady people in your life. And remember, Sometimes the person who truly sees you is not the one who had you first. Sometimes love begins with a broken fence, an honest sentence, and a father brave enough to say, "Go to her, son."